manage it, work it, stretch it. That's what we're going to be talking about today. My guests are joining me. They're not new to the show, and they shouldn't be new to you either. It's Beverly Wilkins and Morgan Holland, and they're representing right now. You're looking at the screen. There are three generations, right? Right. Morgan is our millennium, Beverly is our expert, and I'm somewhere in between, right? So we are really excited. And listen, I want you to take this opportunity. We have Beverly Wilkes, which is she is an expert when it comes to making money matter, things work in your household, stretching the dollar, really saving. Her background is marketing, and I'll let you reintroduce yourself for those who are not familiar with you, Beverly. And then Morgan will talk about you and how the two of you, from our last interview we did last month, I said, we've got to do this. So you guys were kicking off my summer financial series, and we're going to be dealing with all the issues that you could be thinking about when it comes to money and saving. So listen, take this opportunity to reach out to a friend or family member and join the program. If there's a show topic about finances that you guys want us to delve into during this series, this is the perfect time. We don't see your face, we just see your questions, and we can help you and ask you. So I'm going to let you, Beverly Wilkes, just introduce yourself, your background, and then talk about bacon and heels.
Perfect. Hi, everybody. So, my name is Bev Wilkes, and I am by day a marketing executive for a telecom and technology company. And by night, I'm a blogger. It's called Bacon and Heels. You could follow me online, and it's really about figuring out, sharing about how you can make money, how you can save money, and invest money. And I'm glad to be here this evening.
I really, really thank you. Oh, we've got some. They're awesome. Last month. Oh, I'm so glad that you tuned back in for our financial summer series. Now, Morgan Holland. Now, she's our millennial. She is a publisher. She's an author, and she's a coach. And she was on the show last month talking about her book. And then we started talking about money things, and you were like, "Well, what about this?" And I'm like, you know what? What better to have in a conversation of people who are dealing with it instead of assuming what people may want or what we think people may want. And so Morgan is our millennial, and she is going to take part in tonight's program. And I'm excited to have you here. Morgan, take a few minutes to tell a little bit about Mullen Press.
Yes. Okay. So my name is Morgan B. Holland. My publishing company is called Mullen Press. And so essentially we help people, we think of writing as literary therapy. So we help people to write their story in their words and their authentic voice. It's very therapeutic. It's therapeutic for them. And for myself, the first book that I wrote was The Merge, Love Yourself to Freedom. And it's a novel, and it helped me to unconsciously process. I had money issues, romance issues, and that helped to come out in the book. And you'll see that with the characters in the book. I'm so happy to be back.
I appreciate that. Morgan, before we jump with Beverly and we talk about some things with budgeting, when you think of money issues as a millennial, what exactly does that mean to you? What do you think about when I say, what matters to you?
Well, the first thing I think about is student loans. That's just the first thing that just pops up in your head. Because for a lot, I have forgiven myself. So let's start there when it comes to student loans. I don't have the anxiety around it that I used to have, but a lot of people have a lot of anxiety around student loans and purchasing a house. So the limitations that you have for decisions that you made in the past that you didn't really know that it will affect you this way. Just even how I didn't realize until after I finished college that the way it works is my interest is being capitalized and turned into principal, and then creating even more interest. And none of that's explained to you when you take out a loan. And it feels almost as predatory as a payday loan. That's how student loans feel. So when people who don't have student loans or don't know about student loans maybe get upset or say like, well, why should they forget their student loans? There are people who maybe took out 10,000, or 40,000 and owe 80,000. Like student loans are astronomical as far as the interest goes. So even if there was some type of forgiveness of the interest and the capitalized interest, that would help us significantly. So the first thing I think about is those student loans and decisions that I made. So credit cards, just things you made when you didn't know. And now you do, and you have to figure out, wow, how can I move forward? You know what I'm saying? Because it's not like I made this decision today. I made it 10 years ago.
What
Right.
a great response. I really, hearing you summarize it like that, I didn't do student loans. So I do know how many people have them and how it is just, I'll see them 10 and 15 years later saying, I'm still paying on them. So I can hear what you're saying. And for those people who think, oh, why forgive it? You're just talking about forgive the interest, which makes a $10,000 or $15,000
Exactly.
dollar loan up to 70 or $80,000, as you alluded to here. So let's go to you, Beverly. So Beverly, that's a really valid question. What do you say to people that are dealing with that issue in trying to get their house in order financially?
So I think one thing we need to do is to go back. People who are going to be going to college, we got to educate them and make sure that they understand what Morgan was saying. If she would have known X, how it was going to be charged back then, maybe
Mhm.
she would have taken a different approach. Maybe gone to a bank, maybe, taken a different loan lender. So I think we need to educate that, number one. And then number two, this whole thing right now about forgiving the interest, I'm with you. I think that would be remarkable because 10 years, 20 years later, people are still paying
Yes,
down that debt, which means you're stopped from doing other things.
that's
You
right.
don't have enough to purchase a house or you want to move across the country. So you really need to think about what that's going to do. What you say today is how it's going to affect you tomorrow. So I think what's happening right now within the government of Biden saying what they want to do with these loans, it's
Hmm.
really important for people to have a voice and talk about, hey, I'm stuck because I can't move forward. Help me. I'm not saying go to zero and then your education is paid for, but
Right.
help me a little bit by nipping off some of that interest. That would be really helpful.
I think another part of this, which is not directly what we're talking about tonight, but I do challenge people and encourage you if you are dealing with this, right? Do you know your local congressman? Do you know your council
Yeah,
member? Do you know your alderman? These are people you need to reach out to, and don't wait and think that the government can't do everything. But I can tell you, if you don't say anything, then nothing's going to be done. And if they
nothing
don't think, well,
changes.
I don't really, my phone hasn't rang that much, so I'm not going to be there on the hill fighting for this because my constituents don't have that issue. So I'm challenging people that are dealing with that of speaking to their representatives because this is an important issue. And you're exactly right. I don't know the stats on how it goes, who's affected more, what gender or what race is affected more. But can you imagine starting in the hole and then you just never get a chance to dig yourself out?
That's right. So you're starting with a great salary. Let's say you get a great first job, you have a nice salary. It's not coming to you. You can't do investing, or you can, but very small, because you're nipping this large loan that's been on your shoulders for so many years. So we
So
need to think about
Beverly,
that.
let's talk a little bit about budgeting. And again, we do have people, I think we have maybe three levels, what I consider people who have never thought about it, people who've tried, and people who are doing it, right?
Yes,
Would you agree with that, Morgan?
I 100%,
Yes.
100%. And I think what's interesting is consistency.
Okay.
If
That
you
part.
if you
Let,
start it, you got to
let's talk
continue
about
doing
that
it.
one in the middle. Maybe this person is, I don't think I have enough money to really save. Let's address them because I think there's more people in that category than not.
I agree. So you need to look at the holistic view. Where do you stand today? And I don't just mean looking at how much money you have in your bank account or how much comes in. A budget really helps set the groundwork of where you are. So look at how much you have coming in,
Mhm.
how much you have, how much you owe, and then see where you are as your net income, your net worth value. Now, when you start a budget, let's look at all your expenses. And I mean everything: your rent or mortgage, your car payment, utilities, uh, clothes, us ladies, tampons. I want to know absolutely everything where you spend your money on. Get a piece of paper or do it on your phone in the notes section and just write down how much do you really spend a month. Then you can understand, okay, this is where my money is going. And then you know how much is coming in. So maybe
Beverly,
you could
why
cut.
is that a problem? Why does it seem like we've all heard this before? Why don't people do it? Like
Because it's hard. It's
Morgan?
not fun.
I think that mental health is so important. It's anxiety.
Mm,
So you have to look at it. and it's anxiety. It can
It's
be
real.
embarrassing, it's
Yes.
and on top of being time consuming, but we know how much money we make, right? But to actually write down how much we are spending, and you're going to have to make cuts, and no one's over top of you saying do it, do it, do it, and that essential bills that got to get paid, like
Mhm.
mortgage, BGE, phone, internet. But then you have all these other things that you can kind of like, it could be late for a month or two. They're not going to cut it off. It's anxiety, I feel like, to face it, and to gather it together. People have stuff coming out of multiple accounts off of multiple cards. They don't
Yep.
even know. It's not even. It's not like they're looking at one checking account. They could be
Exactly.
looking all over the place. One thing I did to help me to be consistent, you said consistency, I
Mhm.
put it on the wall. So they have all
Beautiful.
these gadgets and stuff, but I see it every time, and I cross out this, and to get on track. Another trick I did, I
Yes.
froze all my cards so
Oh,
nothing
that's
could go through.
smart.
And then you'll get an email for like your subscription didn't come through, or then you realize like I'm paying for that. So doing that just helped me to get a better grasp on it. And my ultimate goal is to be like my sister. She's a CPA. She is so clean with hers. She doesn't even use a debit card. She only
What?
uses her credit card. She only uses her checking account to pay for stuff like your mortgage. Some stuff you just
Yeah.
can't pay with a credit card. And so she literally just at the end of when she get paid, she transfers a certain amount to the credit card, pays on the credit card. She's building points, miles, and everything by simply having a structure. And if her card gets stolen, you don't have the issues like when your debit card
Oh,
gets stolen and
Yes.
people take money out. When you have a
I get
credit
that.
card, that's somebody else's money.
Yeah.
That is a
Exactly.
really true point. One of the things that I did to control myself was I actually have one credit card and I use my debit card, and that's how I instead of having all the credit cards. So for my incidentals, I'll use my debit card. But you're exactly right, because when I lost my debit card, it took forever. I mean, I got the money back, but it took almost 2 weeks because everything
Yeah.
was froze, and then transferring it over and then signing to make sure your signature was it and that you weren't a part of. So that's really good. I mean, there is
Exactly.
true. And I love getting points. So there's a number of
Yeah.
credit
Of
cards out there,
course.
but you got to pay them. The only problem is you got to pay them. And there's something about whoever came up with the credit card umpteen years ago, they knew what they were doing, because there is definitely a disconnect, especially I think somewhat in our African American communities, of not seeing. They see the plastic, but they don't see the bank or the work. And I've worked with my child to explain to her this
Yes.
card is connected to a bank account, which money has to go in. It's just not magical money. And it really does separate a person, because I know I spend differently when I have
Yes.
cash and when I have a credit card.
Yeah.
Everybody that's you hit the nail on the head. Everybody spends differently. I know every month how much is coming out of the account, especially the fixed items,
Mhm.
mortgage, car payment, whatever. I know, and I pick a day of the month. That paycheck is going to pay for these items. The last paycheck of the month is going to pay for the other items. So monthly, I know, but it's not like you're planning a vacation. Look how much research people do when they want to go on vacation. They want to buy a car, their TV. Hours looking and talking to people. Ask anybody how long they spent on their budget. People work like animals every day to get paid. The money leaves their hands quickly, but why don't we put a little bit more effort into a budget? That's why I don't call it a budget. I call it a spending plan. Budget sounds too restrictive.
I like that.
You have to spend, you have to
Yeah.
live. So instead of you saying, I'm going to crunch every single penny, let's look at what you spent for 1 month. Just, June's coming. The 1st of June to the 30th of June, just track every single penny where it went. You may be really surprised at the end of the month. You may be spending more on eating out or on Ubers or on Netflix, just by taking a couple of minutes a day or each time you buy something, just write it down. That really could help you set you up for the next month. And then as soon as you have a routine, it's really easy to get to where you need to be. So, like you said, Morgan, it's on your wall. You know exactly where things are going. Doesn't it feel good when you scratch that off that it was paid?
Exactly. And I have the dates too. because some things just come out. So I make sure and I check it, and it helped a whole lot. And another thing was using, when you say you spend cash differently, you spend like differently when you have cash, only bills for the cards and taking out cash for those flexible things that you get.
Yes.
And once that money's gone, it's gone. Until the next
I
time.
am in love with you. That is fantastic.
And then you're like, back in the day when you had the rollover minutes from like T-Mobile, it's like, we're going to roll over this cash until the next month because I want to do something over there. But then it just kind of helping me to see where things were going, where it's going. And I think that sometimes it's easier when you get like a lump sum to kind of get it all in order. But like that mental health, if you feel like you haven't really been living, and then you get a lump sum, and then you buy a lump sum or something, and you never really get ahead. So that's why I really think people should get to the root. It's kind of like when you first got your job, you just want to buy nice clothes and sneakers because you wanted to because you was a kid and you finally got it. And if we don't address that inner kid, that inner emotion, we're just going to get older and older acting the same way we did that first check we got at like 15 and 9 months.
So my best advice my dad gave me, my first job, he was like, the first paycheck, I want you to blow it all. Cash it, spend every single penny. Get it out of your system. And the second one, you start saving 20%. And it was from there, I was like, what do you mean I could spend it? And I remember going to the store and buying, I was like, this doesn't feel very good. Because I saw the cash leaving me. Yes, I got shoes and I got some Ray-Bans, but I was like, I don't think I like this. I like having it in the bank or in my pocketbook. And then the next pay, I got on that track of saving because you need, to your point, you need to get rid of that inner child and have fun. But that doesn't mean I don't want to go and buy something fancy and cute, or I want to get a new top, or I want to buy some shoes or some makeup or some perfume. We need to live, and that's the balance. How do you live between saving, investing for yourself, budgeting, and then having some fun? Like, it's not all about saving. We need to live as well.
So saving 20% is the beginning. We talked about doing a budget and trying to save about 20%. And now we kind of have a little bit of mixture because people have like this disposable income because for about 2.5 years, we've been sitting at home and still collecting a paycheck and not really getting to spend it. I think online sales have like really gone through the roof. What do you talk about? I think you have something about a spending chart. Can we talk a little bit about that? And you have a web address that we can go to and see some of these applications, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's baconandheels.com. So just how it sounds, how it spells, or baconheels.com. And you could sign up and I'll send you calculators and tools. And there's tons of stuff on the website that you could track yourself, and it's all for free. So I think the spending plan is really interesting because it's just keeping you abreast of how much is coming in every month. So your income that comes in every month, and then where the money is going. What I find interesting about it is you have an opportunity to see if you're in the red or if you're in the green. And for me, that's a bit of a game. Ooh, if I spend $50 less on that, I'm going to be in the green. I want to be green every month. Every month, I like to be 1 penny in my budget. So I pay myself, my bills are paid, I save, I have fun, I have cash in my wallet. But at the end of the month, 1 penny, I'm 1 penny over. So everything is paid. And why I say pay yourself first is because we're used to paying the mortgage, the bills, all those things. And then at the end, we take whatever's left. We got to flip that. We get paid first. You are your own bill. Then you pay your mortgage. Then you pay your other expenses. And a lot of people always say, well, I don't have enough to save for myself.
Right.
I challenge you, save $5. Come up with it. Save 10. If that means you get rid of Netflix and you just have Prime, that's a little sacrifice you can make for your future. Look how much money, maybe not now, Netflix made a ton of money over the COVID, right? They were rolling in the dough. It couldn't last forever. They took a bit of a dip the last couple of months, but they're still up. Now, if you didn't pay yourself for those last 2 years, you would be in the hole and everybody else has money, your money. Here's an opportunity for you to say, okay, I paid me too. And everybody else got a little bit of my money. But I had some entertainment, I have shelter, I have food, I have different things.
Beverly, I did this in Morgan. I remembered starting it like 2 years ago. I got a bank that's not close to me, and I had a direct deposit in there, and it's just such an inconvenience for me to go there. So I don't have a card. I don't have a debit card. I don't have a checkbook. It simply is just a deposit, and it's literally a 30-minute drive for me to go to that facility, that bank. I know that most banks are in every community, but I picked one that was a good distance away from me,
And
so I
that's
wouldn't really have
wonderful
access to it.
because that's the money. So if you making it up $1,000 every 2 weeks, and you take off 20%, and that's $200. The idea is you don't just take the $200 and leave it in that checking account. Put it into a different account. To your point, that if you know yourself that you
Mhm.
cannot manage that money, seeing it there, and you know, okay, I'm going to put it in this account that I can't get on the internet, that I have to physically go into the bank to get, not at the ATM. You got to go in and talk to the lady behind the counter or the gentleman behind the counter. That would be really interesting because then you're going to be like, oh, I got to drive for 30 minutes. I don't have
Right,
time for that.
right.
You'll find another way.
What are your suggestions for helping people tackle debt?
So debt is terrible. There's good debt and bad debt, as they say. Good debt is your education. You have to invest in yourself. I know the paying of the loan is hard, but you learn something that nobody could take away from you. That knowledge you got from that school, that education is always in there. But now we get to pay the bill. Housing debt, I don't think is bad as well. Getting a mortgage that you can manage, like the interest rates have gone up recently, people are now taking a bit of a step back. So making sure that is being taken care of. But managing other debt, like credit card debt, which is the bane of my existence,
Hmm.
you have to remember Visa, MasterCard, all these big firms, they're great to give us this opportunity to buy something today and pay for it later. But a lot of their investments of where they make their money is in that 19 to 22% interest.
I
So if
don't
you
know if
buy
people even know their interest rates for the credit cards. I don't know if the average person knows what they're being charged for every single credit card that they have.
So in on your bill, in fine print, underneath where the payment number is, in small print, they tell you what the interest rate is. Now, by law, I think it was this June or July, they have to tell you if you don't pay the minimum, how much or how long it will take for you to pay the bill.
And it's
So
helpful. It's
it's
funny, but it's helpful.
helpful, but it needs to be bigger. When it's small like this, you're just not going to look at it. It needs to be in your face so you understand, hey, 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 if I don't pay this bill today, it's going to be costing me more. So I'll give you an example. If you bought something today, what is it today? The 16th, the 19th of May, and your bill is due the 19th of June. You don't pay that bill, and it's like the 21st of June. Visa starts charging you interest from today, the 19th of May. They don't charge you interest from the day that the bill was due. They charge you interest from the day that you bought the item.
Wow.
So that's 19.9 or 22.9% interest. Clicking. If you pay a minimum on something, let's say you buy a $200 pair of Air Jordans, they're great, they're super cute, and you pay the $5 minimum pay today, and you only pay the minimum, it will take you over 2 years to pay that bill for those shoes that in 2 years are old and dirty and worn, and you would have paid twice the
For the
amount
same
that
product.
the
That's what I
was
say.
worth.
That is the thing that I say. And I think the American Express is just awesome because you just pay it off. So you really are paying for what you have purchased.
Exactly. And that's a charge card, different than a credit card. Charge card, you have to pay it off every month.
Yeah, I
Yes.
definitely love that financial. Are there any credit cards, Morgan, that you like? Or I mean, you mentioned how you
So
get. I love stuff like that.
yes, so I have Navy Federal Credit Union, so I just love credit unions. So that was my first credit card, a rewards card through them. But I also have Chase Sapphire Preferred card, and I love that card. It works great for me, and it also has, so us millennials, we do like to travel, no matter what's going on in the world. So you can buy your plane ticket, and then they have this chase plan, and you can divide your plane ticket over 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, 12 months. And so you don't pay that interest that you're talking about. It's significantly less. The interest you pay is on that amount. So like, yeah, just make it easy. A $1,200 ticket and you're dividing over 12 months. That's $100 a month. And it's whatever your interest for that $100. So it would
That's good.
be that $15 or something like that. So it's kind of like giving you a payment plan for things, that if you want to go somewhere so you can pay over time. So that's what I enjoy about that card. And plus it comes with comes with a DoorDash pass. You get extra points for just different stuff. I
Okay.
enjoyed that card. But something I just did yesterday was I would suggest people to look at their actual bills. I had Comcast. Well, I have Comcast has a monopoly here. They run the show. So I had Comcast internet, and the speed was like 100, and I was paying $100 a month. So I went to Comcast and I asked them, it's not giving what it's supposed to give. This is a lot of money. Like, can you reduce the amount?
What did they
And
do?
I ended up getting reduced to $39. And now I have a 300 mega speed. It's 3 times as fast for $39. So there's always promos and stuff happening. And what you have to do sometimes is I had to cut off my cable. I mean, I just have internet. I had to cut off the internet and then cut it back on so I could be a new customer. So that's what I did. So right now I'm on my Wi-Fi on my hotspot on my cell phone, because then the new Comcast comes on tomorrow. It gives like a good 24 hours. So you can look and see places you can save. And then for people who are overwhelmed, like they're just already behind on their water or their gas, or because it's just anxiety. You don't want to look at that stuff. Call the peoples.
I agree with you.
Be really nice. And because they have different things where you can divide it up amongst future payments, even with the credit card, call them and talk to them and see if they can lower your interest rate for like 6 months or something like that.
Yep.
Just talk. You just don't know unless you talk to someone and you be really nice, and then take that money and use it with your spending plan. Reallocate it, because you're already using the money.
Exactly.
You gotta have the
A friend of
discipline.
mine, Angie, did that.
You have to have the discipline, because the other thing is, I remember when people would consolidate and get their credit cards paid off and have one bill. Well, then they would go and charge those cards up. So then they had two bills, the consolidated lump sum and additional cards that they had. Are there any cards that you particularly like, Beverly, that you've used and benefited from?
So since I'm Canadian, my credit cards are a little bit different than perhaps yours, but I always stick to the bank card. So a Chase card is super great. Marcus is another one, the bank account that's really interesting. That's putting in some really interesting items. American Express for me is for work and for travel. It's just taken me so many years to build up those points. So for me, points are king, but I don't pay for an annual fee for that point card. When they charge me that fee, I'm like you. I call, hi, no, I will not pay this charge. Look at how much I spent over the year. Could you please remove it? And 9 times out of 10, they do. They just, okay, no problem. We love you. Thank you for being, a MasterCard user for like 20 years. And they've been minus the $90 a year fee. Bye.
I love asking for what you want and making it happen. I have to tell you, so we are going to continue this conversation. This is our first one. We're kicking off our summer financial series. So next month, June 16th, we're all going to meet here again. And I need you right there that's watching and tuning in and streaming from wherever you are in the country or the world. You have questions or comments. You want us to have them in advance of next June 16th event, Juneteenth. So if you want to, please send it to me at Taylor Thomas Anchor at Gmail. That's Taylor Thomas Anchor at Gmail. We're going to talk about credit. We're going to talk about starting a business, and we're going to talk about buying a home. And then if there's some things that you guys throw in there you want us to talk about as well, we'll definitely do that. Beverly, how can people reach out to you and get some of these worksheets?
Yeah, just go to baconandheels.com and you can subscribe, and I'll be sending you information. And you could follow me on Instagram at bacon_and_heels. And I'm there.
And Morgan, how can people reach out to you or even find out more about your books?
Yes, yes, you can head over to mullenpress.com. And I also have a free writing planner and free writing challenge just to get your juices going. Maybe can help process out any type of, with your inner child and all that good stuff so that you can spend your money better.
Right on.
Well, ladies, I cannot wait to see you guys on Juneteenth, the 16th at 7 o'clock. We have one full hour of us talking about this. Like I said, starting a business, credit, buying a home, and then dealing with some mental healing as it pertains to money and saving.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, ladies. All right, so we're going to transition now from the financial things to now. This is something that's happening at a alarming pace across the country. Yes, it's parents at home with their adult children and the issues and concerns that come up with that trying issue because of COVID and some other reasons as well, the economy and the work environment. So I would like to introduce to you now Carol Muleta. And Muleta, excuse me, Carol Muleta. What is wrong? I'm sorry. From Parenting 411. She's a certified parent educator and author. Carol, thank you so much for coming back on the program. This is a topic I've been wanting to talk to you about because so many people were writing to me about it. And it's a sensitive topic, your adult children being in your home and the ups and downs that kind of come with that.
Yes, absolutely. And I thank you for inviting me back. And it is a sensitive issue, but it is part of a growing trend. I was surprised to learn that a third of adults age 25 to 29 are living in what they're calling a multi-generational household or living with their parents. And so some of it is cultural, but some of it, the key drivers are, as you mentioned, the pandemic, money, just maybe they don't have a job or they don't make enough money. Sometimes it involves a caregiving commitment.
Sure.
That's how it happens. Rising housing costs. I mean, everywhere you go, it is just so hard to buy that first home. And, as a society for many years, it's like you haven't made it if you haven't been able to do that. So that puts a lot of pressure on young people as well. And then high student loan debt.
We were just talking about that.
Exactly. And so it's a sensitive issue. And sometimes there's a feeling of maybe we haven't done our job right if our children need to come back home. But honestly, there's a lot out there that is really creating tough situations for young people graduating high school who may not be going to college, but at the same time, they're not ready to go out on their own. Or college graduates sometimes need to come back home. And so parents and children, now they are adult children, need to figure out how to live together.
Carol, how do we start that conversation? Because I think it's better to have the conversation in the beginning versus the midst of a situation, whether it's negative or hostile or frustrating, right?
Right. Talk about it up front. Like, what is the arrangement going to be? What is your son or daughter's goal? What are they working toward? I mean, not only is that helpful for your child, your son or daughter, but it also gives you an idea of a time frame. It also gives you an idea of how you can help. I mean, it makes a world of difference when you share your goals and share your intentions with those around you. So that's first of all, like, are you going to be staying here until you apply for graduate school, or are you saving up? Are you saving up to get an apartment? Are you saving up for a house? Because of course, those timelines might be different depending on what's going on. And then to talk about, once it's decided that your son or daughter is going to move back in, what are the contributions to the household?
I was going to ask you that. So they should pay something, right?
Yes, I definitely think they should pay something, contribute to certainly they're going to be eating food. There's certainly going to be electricity and all sorts of utilities being used. And so there should be some kind of contribution there. You can also, kind of my next step is to set some boundaries. And so there you're talking about how much space you're going to be taking up, your child is going to be taking up, and kind of getting clear about that, and using resources and tools. How are you going to, in terms of food, how are we going to do that? Is your adult child going to buy her own food and prepare their own food? Or is this going to be, are we going to contribute? I mean, these are things to think about. I mean, even though just a few short years ago, they were growing up in this home and didn't have to think about these things. Now it's really good to, put some boundaries around it. I mean, it can sound a little weird, but it's a good way to think about things, because eventually they are going to be going out, and these are just issues they hadn't had to think about before. But it's definitely worth doing, so that people's feelings aren't hurt and expectations aren't being met. And so then there are arguments and things like that. You're really just laying the ground rules in the beginning.
Carol, why do you believe that it's important to have your adult child who's staying with you for whatever period of time and for whatever reason to contribute? What's the benefit outside of the financial contribution? What's the benefit? Why is it important that is done and established?
Because they are saying that they have a stake in the house running well, that everybody has what they need to live comfortably in the home. They are doing their part to help out. And I'll tell you something that's very interesting. Very often it is not at all that the parents need the money. In fact, some parents will bank that money, and when the child gets on their feet, they won't tell them in advance, but they will bank that money and present it to them when they leave, when they go out to live on their own. But they save that money, they put that money aside for their son or daughter. So it's not really about the money always. It could be now. If it is, that's certainly a compelling reason. Sure. But a lot of times it's not.
Parents, there's the other side, because I know a couple of parents that fit on both sides of that coin as far as the struggle of that decision. But the other part is, I don't want my kids to feel like I can't do it. I want my kids to feel like I can give them everything. So even though I would think it's beneficial to have them understanding what things cost and how electric bills increase when there's more people in the house, and using it common sense. But, again, they've never had to do it, so they may not necessarily think about it. But some parents are like, I just don't want my kid, stressing or worrying about this. I'll just take care of it. And I sometimes think it may be to the detriment of a child.
Oh, I absolutely think it is to the detriment of the child. Because in fact, even taking that approach when children are younger, because there are some ways that they can contribute, even if it's not with money, but in other ways to help out. When we keep doing things for them, they are not developing vital life skills, and they're not developing the mindset that I am part of something. I'm part of a family, or I'm a part of a group. And if I don't do my part, then we are not going to be all that we could be. So I think that as an adult, when your child moves back in, I think that is still very important to do.
So, Carol, I just got a text a few minutes ago from a parent who said that they did do what you said. They set up and had an agreement, and 6 months is now turning into a year and a half. And they don't see the plan. Whenever the discussion is, what I'm alluding to, I guess from what I'm seeing is, when they try to talk about it, it becomes the person feeling like they're being kicked out. And I guess the parents feel like they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Sure. And so, I mean, actually convey to the son or daughter, it's not that we're kicking you out. We just need to know what's happening. So it seems like initially when we talked about this, it was a year. well, it's a year and a half, so we're gonna need to come back together and lay out a game plan. And because the deadline slipped, find out how can we help. Like what resources is there? What can we do to help you towards your goal? Not what can we do to help you get out of our house, but seriously,
I'm sorry.
we want,
Yes.
what do you want to do with your life?
Mhm.
And how can we help make that happen?
I
You
like
know?
how you make the positive comment, because even though you're getting to what it is that you want to be, the way that you're saying it to me, it seems inclusive
Mhm.
and not like you're on this island by yourself.
Yes, I think that is so very important. I mean, over the past 2 weekends, my twin sons have graduated from college.
Oh, wow.
And
Congratulations.
thank you, thank you. And so, the family was together for our celebration, and one of the celebrations, and I had to chuckle about how, as we were nearing the end of high school, one of my twins said, I don't think I want to go to college. And so of course, we had been talking college all this time and all of that. And I said, oh, okay, what's your plan? Because certainly there are multiple ways to create a life. And if you have a plan, then let's hear it. And so he didn't have one. He just kind of threw that out there. And I said, well, this train is moving toward college. This is what you've been working toward. But when you have that plan, when you want to do something else, how you're going to make money and sustain it and be able to create a life for yourself, come on back with it. And so, he didn't. And so now he went to college. He went to college and he's now graduated. But I say all that to say that try to hear them out.
Okay.
I mean, because there's certainly people I have actually noticed that there are a few of my peers that I know can fully afford to send their children to college. They have children that were talented in some particular way, had been working a long time in certain areas, whether it's the arts or real estate or other things that they were interested in, and they bypassed college, but they had a plan. Okay. And their children are thriving. They did not go to college. So you meet them where they are, and I think that this is something that parents can still do with their young adult who might need to come back as well. I mean, there needs to be a mixture of love but there's some firmness as well. Like there are some expectations. I mean, we love you. At the same time, you really do want to create your own life. You really want, you honestly don't want to be here living with your parents forever. It's just, you're not going to want to, trust me. So let's see how we can do this.
So Carol, I'm going to play devil's advocate.
Mm-hmm.
A person, whomever, listening to the program, they have really exhausted every option scenario that they could, and they've reached their point. This has been extended for them. Mm-hmm. What advice or suggestion can you pose to them? At this point, you're really just talking to the parents, right? Like nobody wants to put their kids out, no matter what. Mm-hmm. But where do you draw the line that I've got to do something drastic, because if this continues, they're never going to leave? And it's not like it's not a money thing. I'm just talking about there needs to be a separation. Parents need their space. Young adults need their space. They can have their company. Mm-hmm. How do you help people like that?
Well, again, when you go back and take a look at whatever the original agreement was, and it hasn't panned out, then you can feel free to set a date. I mean, I would set a date, and also make sure that as a family we're doing what we can so that the person is ready to leave the house. Yeah. I mean, so that means will they know how to maintain a house when they get there? Like, get them involved. this should have started from day one,
Right.
but make sure that they have responsibilities in the house in terms of cleaning, maintenance, laundry, errands, all of that. Also, talk to them about finance as well. And if they don't already know, I mean, teach them about credit, savings, investment. Give them that long-term view, retirement, because guess what? Mom and dad aren't always going to be here. And the resources that mom and dad have, that they have acquired over their years, well, this is to fund their retirement and long-term care. I mean, all an inheritance is always a blessing, but also remember that mom and dad need to be taken care of as well. So some of that nest egg you may be expecting will be used for mom and dad's care, as it should be. Absolutely. And then help them to develop goals. I mean, you don't give them a deadline like you're going to have to be out of here July 2023 and not arm them with the tools. But that's okay too, to have a deadline. And also just help them along though. I mean, give them the tools, whatever it is. And it may be that they have the knowledge, but perhaps emotionally, they just can't really get their hands around this. And that may be a point where you may want to bring in a mental health counselor, or maybe if it's not mental health, it's not anxiety, depression, or any of those things that's holding them back, but maybe it's a life coach or something like that. Then do that and help them to get past that barrier that might be in their own minds, so that they can move out.
Carol, what are some of the things that people come to you and ask you for a help with?
Do you mean with young adults, or you're talking about with
with children, actually, children in general?
Oh, well, absolutely. The parents come to me a lot of times when they feel like they're pressed for time, they're stressed out, and they just feel like they're just surviving, just from one thing to the next. And so oftentimes they will come to me with one problem. My child's talking back to me, or my child's not doing his or her homework. And so we'll take a look at that. But then also I encourage them to look back at what kind of structure have you established? What kinds of expectations do you have? And are your children aware of it? And how are you helping them to work towards meeting those? And then very importantly, who is your child? What is your child interested in? What does your child care about? Because there are ways to bring that together so that the child can work toward what they're interested in and get what they want, and you get what you want, which is a confident, capable, competent child that is able to tackle life's challenges. So that's one thing. I also hear from parents about technology and social media. They just feel like their children are just so obsessed with that. So we talk about that, ways to get that under control, which always starts with modeling. Like, what are they seeing you do? How are they seeing you engage with technology? And again, what are the expectations? What are you all talking about in terms of what's reasonable? Are there any screen time limits?
Should there be?
Yes. And I say that because, first of all, when children just, it takes them a while to learn about delayed gratification and boundaries and limitations and all of that. So we've got to help them. And so set some boundaries around it. And actually, we adults should have some boundaries as well. Like, we should have a certain time in the evening before bedtime where we shut those things down. And there should be certain places and certain times when there are no electronics, like no electronics at the dinner table or at any meal. There should be none of that. Maybe it's in the car when you're riding together, no one's on their phones. That's a time for conversation. That's a time for connection. So put some boundaries around it. I mean, life, we all have limits, even adults. There are limits to what we can do or what we should do before um, any excess activity or excess use or whatever starts to affect other areas of our lives. I mean, yeah, we can sit up and watch Netflix, till 1 o'clock in the morning, but will we get to work on time? Will we get to school on time? So just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so parents, um, as leaders of the family, should start teaching them habits of creating some limits and some boundaries around technology and just in general,
Now,
creating self-discipline, basically.
now, social media really, I think, has changed the structure of today's kids. And I think one of the biggest things that I noticed is it has changed their attention span and the self gratification that they get from social media is not something a human can do just talking to them. So it's really really interesting to see because I know, for example, with my teenager, when I tell her to put down the phone, it's like, oh my god, it's so boring. And her stimulus that she needs to entertain her, she needs all these things moving, and I'm like, we're just driving. So it's a really scary thing. And she started later than most people. I didn't let her have technology as early as some people may have. I mean, I see some people with 2-year-olds that are sitting in front of a laptop with video games and television programming.
Well, I would have conversations because a lot of times the people that they're following that have these lives that our kids idolize and try to emulate and all of that, a lot of times you will find out that it's not what you think. What they're showing you is not true. And you've got to point those things out and also talk about, use that as a way to have conversations about like some of the things that they're seeing, some of the videos, the viral videos and things like that. Talk about, what do you think about that? And how do you think that person feels about themselves? Why do you think that person said that or did that? And so that they can start thinking critically about what they're taking in, what they're consuming. Because I used to talk to my children about, you're feeding your mind, just like you feed your body and you decide what the right things are to eat and drink. You need to be more discerning about what you're taking into your mind. You think it's harmless, you're laughing, you think it's stupid or whatever, but it is that bits of it, are taking root in your mind and shaping how you think about things. So be careful what you're feeding your mind.
Carol, you mentioned some parents coming to you asking you about a child talking back. Is that a rites of passage for teens, or is it young adults? I mean, preteens?
Oh, well, it's a rite of passage. I wouldn't call it that, but it might be a typical stage of development, but it does not
Okay.
mean that it has to be tolerated. Like,
Okay.
recognize it
Okay.
for what it is,
Yes.
and at the same time, also reinforce the fact that in your family, we speak to each other with respect. Or in your family, we have certain ideas about how we relate to each other, and
Mm.
we have ideas about how we disagree with each other. Because it should be okay for them to express their opinions and question things, but it's all in how you do it.
And the time, right? At the appropriate time, right? I think
Well, at
there's
the appropriate time and all of that. I mean, if they ask or act out at the wrong time, I mean, circle back to it. I mean, deal with the needs of the situation. Like, you can ignore it, or you can let them know right then and there that this is not appropriate and this is what we're going to do. But then you can circle back and have a conversation about it. So, there are typical ages and stages that children go through, and parents should be familiar with those. It doesn't mean that it gives them license to do what they want to do and you wait for the period to pass. No, parents are there to provide guidance.
Do you agree with spanking?
No, I don't. Because really, spanking is really an exercise of power and domination in a situation,
Hmm.
when really what you want to do is teach your child what he should be doing. He obviously shouldn't have been doing whatever created the problem, but spanking doesn't really do that. All it shows is, I don't like that. I'm bigger than you and I can stop you. And in the moment you do, spanking, it does. It gets their attention very quickly. Um, but the lesson really isn't learned. Like, what should I be doing instead? I mean, that the fact that they misbehaved or whatever, it's a signal to you that I don't know what to do in this situation. So address that. Teach them how to respond appropriately or to conduct themselves appropriately. That's what you want, because spanking, it hurts them in the moment and they're angry with you. And not that that's a problem in and of itself, but what do they do with that? Do they now wait to do what they want to do when you're not around, when you're not looking? Because you really haven't given them any instruction, haven't given them any boundaries for that particular behavior. So,
And you don't feel that there's at any time there's some kids that just respond to that better than others. That some kids are just they're going to continue until there's something drastic. And I don't mean hurting someone. I'm just saying a spanking to. I just know that we've had discussions before with parents, and they said, I have one child, and that's the only way that I can reach him or her.
so what you're saying is, I mean, what a person's saying is that um, my child only responds to someone hurting him.
Mm, okay.
And my child, so I mean, and then that, because, and everybody's not going to hit him, but everybody means what they say. I mean, but people mean what they say. Like at school, generally, the teacher's not going to hit your child, but you need your child to be able to respond to instruction. And
Without
if there is a question about what they're being asked to do, that's why it becomes important for them to be good critical thinkers and good communicators, because a lot of times that's the misbehavior. Really take a look at, why is that child continuing to misbehave? Why is that child so discouraged? That's usually at the root of it. Why does this child need so much attention? Why does this child seek?
better.
Say that again.
A punishment is better. Taking away something, time in their room.
Not punishment. It's a consequence.
Consequence.
Because of the difference is, a consequence is just the result of an action that's been taken. Punishment is that I want you to feel pain because of what you did. On the other side,
I've never thought about that. My mom and dad, those years, those restrictions. I used to have the restrictions. That was my punishment. But I guess, I mean, I've never even thought of it the way that you said that.
Right. The consequences are just saying, this happened, and as a result, this is what we're going to need to do. The other one is, I want you to feel pain somehow because of what you
consequences. Did. I do like that. That is something that I use, and that's really is true. I mean, important to teach any child or person. Actually, there are consequences to things that you say and that you do. Carol Muleta, oh my goodness, the Parenting 411. I could talk to you all day. I really do appreciate your insight. And as we said before, this is a growing thing where parents are dealing with adult children in their home. Not that they have a problem, but just getting adjusted to it and dealing with it, especially since I know the world is opening back up, but we're still really spending a lot more time at home.
Yes. Absolutely. It's a trend, but if you really kind of get a handle on it up front and lay out some ground rules, it actually can be an enjoyable time.
I certainly believe that. How can people follow you and get a copy of your books?
Oh, please follow me at the Parenting 411 on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And this is the 1-year anniversary of the release of my mini motherhood memoir entitled Mother's Work, Pearls of Wisdom and Gems from My Journey. So your followers can pick up a copy at carolmuleta.com/motherswork.
Happy anniversary. I love it.
Thank you.
Sarah
Thank
Muleta,
you.
I thank you for your time and your information. And I just learned now we don't want punishment. We want consequences. So I've learned something. I never even thought about punishment being like that. And, so I'm one of the kids that didn't get a spanking, but, I do appreciate your information in this conversation. I welcome you back anytime.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, that'll do it for tonight's show for NNPA and Black Press USA. Until next week, God bless and goodbye.